Hi everyone, I'm Yelizaveta and this is another Essential Body Mechanics tutorial. Today I'd like to share with you a very simple exercise that I use in my Essential Body Mechanics series class to develop awareness of your axis and train the alignments that we need to have a stable axis. So this is probably the most important exercise. It's a building block that allows for other movements to happen. And what I'd like for you to remember is a couple of things. First, the purpose of the exercise is not to go as far into it or to do it as extreme as possible. The purpose is to do it as slowly and as with much control as possible. So I'm going to show you the exercise, but I encourage you to explore this on your own and see how slow, how much awareness you can put into the exercise so that, number two, you can develop an internal map of your own body, because ultimately that's really how we become better movers and how we improve in our body. It's not necessarily by achieving new types of shapes or new types of movements, but rather it is by developing an inner map, an inner understanding of what muscles, what parts of the body are engaging in a particular movement, and how do these parts need to relate to other parts to achieve stability and balance. So this exercise is probably the most fundamental exercise that I use in the series, and most of the other movements that we practice in the class are going to be built on this particular exercise. So for this movement, what you're going to need to do is just wear some comfortable clothing and have your feet on the floor, no shoes, preferably no socks. So what you need to do is to have your feet hips width apart to start. So when we're talking about the axis, we're talking about a vertical line, an imaginary vertical line that goes all the way through your body, that your body arranges itself around. And so what I think about is that the spine is where we really are going to be focusing on, and how the spine wants to undulate and go around the axis to most efficiently arrange itself for balance. So the 3 points that we're focusing on in my Essential Body Mechanics series are going to be the base of the spine, your sacrum, the first vertebra that sits on the sacrum. Then we talk about what I call the T12, which is kind of your mid-back area, so somewhere over here. In the front, it will be kind of where your solar plexus is. And then the last point will be the C7, which is this bump here that you can touch and feel. So those 3 points, we want them aligned along your axis. And what I want to do first is to make sure that my pelvis is aligned correctly. So this exercise is really going to be challenging these alignments and giving you a sense of where is it that you're comfortable holding this alignment and where do you need a little bit of work. So the first thing I would like for you to do is rock forward and back on your heels and just feel this motion that you're able to keep the pelvic alignment the same. So we're not going to be moving from the pelvis, so this would be a untucking and tucking motion. I want to find a neutral pelvis, so there will be a little bit of untucking. There will be a little bit of a softness in the front here. There will be a little bit of a hip crease. Sometimes I think of it as I'm about to sit on a stool behind me, or I imagine there's a big tail, crocodile tail behind me, creating kind of a tripod sensation in my body. I want to keep my T12, my solar plexus, into the body, so a little bit of a sensation that as if I'm about to hug something in front. So I don't want to extend too much because that will compromise my stability. So the 3 points that we're concerned with, the C7, T12, and the sacrum area, we want those 3 points stacked, one on top of the other. So we rock forward and back a few times, and then eventually practice bringing the heels up without changing height. So here I'm drawing the heels up, and then I'm releasing down. and you can release the knees and then do it again. So each time I'm drawing the heels up, I imagine there are rubber bands between my sit bones and my heels. I am not pushing up and creating more height through my head. The head just stays where it is. So I draw my heels up and I release them down. It is up to you how high the heels go. Sometimes for some people, it's a little bit hard to go all the way up, so you can just bring the heels up a little bit. Now, a little bit of a note here, if this is unusual and you feel a little bit shaky, I encourage you to allow the shake to happen in the body. So don't try to be rigid. You don't have to be perfect. Sometimes the body needs to shake a little bit to find its stability, and that's fine. So once you've practiced this a few times, let's go ahead and keep going. I'm going to draw my heels up, and I'm going to hold this position for a moment and get used to it. Then what I'd like to practice is allowing myself to go a little bit lower. And so here's where the work begins. I am going to really work on keeping my pelvis aligned the same way I had it a moment ago. I'm going to see how low I can go. Maybe I go to about this height here, and that's it for me. You want to make sure your heels, your knees are comfortable, so no pain in the knees. And you want to make sure you haven't started compromising anything. So the most common adjustment here that might start sneaking in is a tucking of the pelvis. That's one. And the other one that's really sneaky is the T12 area, the solar plexus, pushing forward, creating this kind of alignment. So you want to watch, I sometimes think of a corset kind of cinching in around my spine and holding everything in the same place. So I begin to go lower. So let's say I come to this height. Then, as slowly and as with much control as possible, I'm going to push all the way up to my tippy toes. And here again, what I want to make sure is that my pelvis hasn't changed its original alignment or its original relationship to the rest of the body. Very commonly, once we press to the toes, the front of the hip flattens out because the pelvis shifts forward, and then we feel like we're going to fall forward. So from this position, I draw the heels, I come a little bit lower, I draw all the way up, I pause here, and then I release the heels. So this is the first variation of this exercise. You can do it 2 or 3 times to get used to it, and then reverse the order. So first, in the first version, we came down first. So we drew the heels up, came down, then went up. Now, I'm going to draw the heels up. I'm going to press up first, and then come down, and then release the heels, and then come up to straight. So this would be kind of a mild version of this exercise. If you want to take it a little bit further, you can challenge yourself to go all the way down to your heels. Now this is, of course, much more intense on the knees, so you want to watch and see if there's any kind of discomfort in the knees. Please adjust, don't go very far. This exercise is not worth the injury. So you want to only work as far as you can hold all the alignments. So I'm going to show you the full version. I'm going to soften my knees, draw the heels up towards my sit bones. Here I watch that my pelvis hasn't changed its alignment. I keep my T12 in, my head, my C7 is aligned, and then I begin to release down. I go as slowly as I possibly can here. It gets really intense. I might shake a little bit. I come down all the way to my heels. Now, very common here to see that we shift. So this action happens quite often. So you might use a mirror or a video yourself and feel that you're still back here. Your axis is still the same as it was when you first started. From here, begin to draw yourself back up. And again, this is very challenging, allows you to really work a lot of the muscles in the legs and your core and go all the way up and then release. And then you can reverse the movement. You can begin by pressing up and then releasing all the way down and then pressing back up. So once you've practiced this, let me show you a couple of variations that you can use to make this exercise a little bit more complex, a little bit more interesting. So one of the things that we do a lot in tango, and of course in other dances and activities, is we twist and we dissociate. So you can bring the dissociation into this exercise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that I'm holding a ball in front of me, and I'm going to begin by dissociating, by turning myself a little bit to my right. Now from here, because when we dance our head is really in one place, I like to train the reflex to keep the head aligned straight forward. So I turn, it's not very much, it's about maybe, if this is 12 o'clock, this is about 1:30 here. So I don't need to turn all the way to 3 o'clock, just a little bit. So I feel an engagement across my obliques, my torso is engaged to the core. So you want to learn to feel that sensation, because it's very easy to just go like this. And here, I'm not really engaging anything, I'm actually just kind of collapsing to the side. So I want to feel these muscles working, helping me to stay back on my axis. And so I look straight ahead, and from here, I bend the knees. I draw the heels up. I release as much as I can, so going as low as possible. Then I might go ahead and turn all the way to the other side. Keep looking straight ahead. Press up all the way up. And come back to center and release. Repeat, starting on the other side. So I start in the center. I'm going to turn to my left. I keep looking straight ahead. I bend the knees, I draw the heels up. I release down. I turn to the other side. Then I go all the way back up. Come back to center and release. So that's one really easy adaptation of this exercise to also bring in some of that practice for dissociation. Lastly, let me show you a couple of other ways that you can introduce some other challenges into this exercise. And they're going to really be working with the alignment of your head and how it's going to affect your axis. So I begin by drawing the heels up, and this time I'm going to go all the way up. So my up could be different from your up. Your heels might be a little bit lower. That's not the point of how high my heels are. I can just hang out here as well, and it's already more challenging than if my heels were on the ground. Now again, you might allow yourself to kind of bounce a little bit to find the alignment. From here, just practicing turning your head to the right and then turning your head to the left. Coming back to center, looking up and then looking down, which is probably the most challenging, and then coming back up. Now we can make it a little bit more challenging by looking down and then allowing yourself to begin to roll forward. The rolling forward can be as far as is comfortable for you, and then still with the heels off the ground, begin to slowly come up, finding the balance, come all the way up, and then release the heels to the ground. Now once you do this exercise, even once with maybe some variations, you'll feel a lot of engagement in your legs, you'll feel a lot of your core engaged, there will be a lot of heat. And I encourage you to try this exercise before going dancing, because just from that, I think about this exercise as shining a light inside your body and kind of giving you a bit more sensation of the lay of the land internally, like the parameters, the internal map of how your body is organized. It's a really, really nice exercise. If you're still dissatisfied with the complexity of these exercises and you feel like you want a little bit more challenge, I always say to my students that the best way to make something difficult is to close your eyes. So this exercise with your eyes closed, where you're practicing very slowly going up and down onto your heels and dissociating one side to side, is really the quickest, most efficient way of building those new neural pathways where your body learns to balance in these different positions. So try it out, let me know how it goes, and if you're interested in joining the series, the new series will start January 11th, so if you're in LA area, let me know if you're interested, and I would love to have you in the series. That's it for me today. Thanks so much for joining. Please reach out if you have other questions. You can also check out my website at essentialbodymechanics.com for more info about upcoming events and other topics and things like that. I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Bye.